Sometimes an anime can bring all conversation and discourse to a grinding halt with just a mere utterance of its name. A veritable landmine of hot takes, strong feelings, and a litany of TLDRs. One such anime we've already talked about, and as its reputation has preceded it, we're going to talk about again. Now, it's easy to fall into the Dr. Manhattan headspace of constantly feeling like you're experiencing the same conversation at different points of your life, but with certain stories and movies and of the like, that feeling is almost inevitable. Just ask any Star Wars fan. Even though I've already talked about Cowboy Bebop some time ago, I still feel there's a lot of ground to cover for the 1998 anime series because, despite it ending over 20 years ago, the series still goes on. While rumblings of a live-action movie had been stirring on the internet for the last decade or so, movement finally occurred when Netflix announced a series that garnered reactions ranging from "Hey, finally!" to "Please don't let this be another Death Note." After John Cho's unfortunate accident, we're going to have to wait a bit longer for a final verdict. But the fact remains that this show is going to exist at all either means that the legacy of this show is so bulletproof that success is all but inevitable, or Netflix is really pooping its pants over Disney+. Possibly both. Either or, I find it endlessly intriguing that Bebop has lived on past its original 26-episode series, and garnered itself security and status as an untouchable great, especially when you consider how the series was born out of Watanabe being told, "Go and make a show about spaceships."
宇宙船が出てくれば、あとは問わないということなんで、よしと。
And that's it. From that bit of directionless direction, Watanabe veritably spun straw into gold. Well, at least in my eyes he did. No surprise here learning that 6 years on from my original praising of the series has changed little of my overall opinion of the anime. It's still one of my favorites, and one that I could keep going back to again and again, and love it just as much as I did the day I first saw it. Very few things in this world can do that for me, and as such, I consider it incredibly special.
Well, it looks like all my good karma is finally paying off.
I sincerely don't care if I find myself in the majority with my opinion on Bebop, because I would rather be honest with me and you than pretend otherwise. Not that there hasn't been a growing contingent of people calling for its label of being overrated. Yes, you can summarize most of these rumblings as contrarians being true to type, but I do get the notion that there is a sizable amount of the fandom that genuinely feels that the show has been overhyped and overblown.
Ice cream.
Ice cream?
Ice cream cone.
To wit, all I have to say is, that's not surprising. I mean, not for nothing, but when you have an entire generation of fans preaching its greatness for the last 2 decades, it's easy to be let down for new fans to see it, expecting nothing short of a life-altering experience. It's not necessarily the fault of the show, or the fans heralding it for that matter. It's just following the well-worn path of art and film discourse. We've all seen it before. A piece of art comes out that garners initial praise and adulation, and then the second generation of people come around, having heard all of this praise and adulation, and then forms their own opinion that often counteracts the first. Thesis? Antithesis. It's a necessary part of the total consumption of art. The first generation provides praise and attention, and thereby doing carves a space for the work in cultural memory, preserving it for future generations. Then the second generation comes along and provides a viewpoint that the first can never have. One where the work already exists, and the sheen of something new and novel is worn off. Or perhaps both sides might start at different points, where the first generation outright dismisses the art in question, but is then reappraised by the second. But eventually, all will coincide at the inevitable middle point of conflict, as both arguments inform each other as much as they often contradict each other. In the Platonic ideal, this process ends with synergy, where both viewpoints are argued until they coalesce into a singular entity, and therefore both parties arrive at a singular truth. Or as close to the truth as one can feasibly attain. In reality, we tend to just get stuck in contradiction and argument. Nobody ever said that Hegelian dialectics was for the optimist. What? It means we're constantly fighting with no hope of ever coming to terms.
Yay! Nintendo! Now you're playing with power!
Genesis does what Nintendo don't, you classless twit!
There's no power greater than X.
Oh God, men are such babies.
Still, the cyclical process has been a part of art as long as there has been art, and as history has shown, there it will remain. So when I see new anime fans create threads on forums and Reddit posts about how they finally watched Bebop and was unimpressed or they thought it outright sucked, I'm left only thinking, well, why is that? So long as we both are able to be honest with ourselves and each other, I think there's a place for both viewpoints. And in that spirit, let me reaffirm my position using its own feature film, Cowboy Bebop the movie.
Says here that the movie's called Knocking on Heaven's Door, mon capitan.
Not outside Japan it isn't. And if you ever try to well actually me again, I'm gonna tell all your Italian girlfriends that you're not actually Canadian.
Sei una vipera infida.
But yes, released in Japan in September of 2001 as Cowboy Bebop Heaven's Door, the movie is a standout feature of animation and style. Combining returning director Shinichiro Watanabe's touch and feel with a chip on a shoulder kind of attitude from a young, hungry studio, Cowboy Bebop the movie is, well, Cowboy Bebop, with all that distinction entails. But what does that actually mean? And why does this film succeed when so many other films based off of anime series fail? Well, isn't that the question of the day? This is Cowboy Bebop the movie. For the uninitiated, Bebop is the story of 4 bounty hunters who collect criminals for the overstretched police from all over the solar system. The name of the show and the movie comes from in-universe terminology, with cowboys being slang for bounty hunters, and Bebop being the name of the ship they all travel in.
He called you a cowboy. What did he mean? What are you?
Just a humble bounty hunter, ma'am.
Keeping proceedings as spoiler-free as possible, said 4 bounty hunters are as follows. Spike Spiegel, a martial artist and former gangster whose past refuses to stay buried, Jet Black, a former cop who also struggles with his own past and the betrayals he has suffered, and Faye Valentine, a femme fatale who can't seem to remember her past at all. A pattern would be emerging if not for the 4th crew member, Edward, a 13-year-old hacker who seems completely unconcerned with her past, or the present for that matter. Yeah, she was written out of the dramatic ending for the show. Can't imagine why. While there are essential characters to the show and an overarching story, the show has more of an episodic kind of nature. There's no real end goal, nowhere that the cast has to be at any particular time, and no real looming threat or danger that our cast have to overcome. In short, save for about 5 episodes, each episode is really just a short film unto itself. This is compounded with the fact that outside of the principal cast, there are almost no recurring side characters. Most are introduced and said goodbye to in one way or another over the course of their one episode. Further solidifying matters is how some episodes have ambiguous endings that leave pressing matters unexplained and being never mentioned again.
Whatever happens, happens.
But because the series has this kind of structure, a feature film could be slotted right in, and it would fit perfectly well. In essence, what a feature film would be is just an extra long episode. And the general plot of the movie reads as such too, as the crew of the Bebop become entangled with a terrorist who is targeting the terraformed Martian population with a mysterious and deadly gas.
We only know it involved hazardous materials which have yet to be identified. The crews you see behind me are working feverishly to decontaminate the area and remove what remains of the truck that exploded.
A movie about terrorism released in September of 2001. Yeah, are you surprised to find out that it took nearly a year for its American release? And then 7 more months before it ever got a theatrical run here? Regardless, the fact that the series was always episodic in nature means that a movie can exist without drudging up the demons that so often befalls films of a similar nature. How many times have we experienced the tried and true formula of a bad guy who pops in out of nowhere, gives our heroes problems who normally they wouldn't even bat an eye at, only for them to be soundly beaten and never given much thought again, ostensibly making the proceedings feel like a waste of time in the overall scheme. Right, Yu Yu Hakusho, Dragon Ball Z, Tenchi Muyo, Sailor Moon, I could go on. Since there is no continuity, generally speaking, all a film adaptation of Bebop would need do is keep the feeling of Bebop. And while that seems like an easy thing to do on paper, it takes a seriously deft hand to account for all the intangibles that the series is known for. One of its most obvious intangibles, I know, kind of an oxymoron, is also one of its most defining features. Its music. It's almost a fact of life that the music in Bebop is legendary, and still stands as some of the best that the medium has ever had the privilege of calling its own. However, I feel that's only part of the equation. The soundtrack may be evocative and full of personality and haunting moments, but it's the way the music is used in Bebop, and the film especially, that cements these evocative feelings.
My old man always used to say, when a ship goes out to sea, either it keeps sailing or it sinks. There's nothing else.
Watanabe's strength as a director has always been his uncanny ability to match visual with sound, to let a piece of music just saturate his scene with mood and atmosphere. Whether it's a leery sax that hangs in a smoke-filled bar, a bombastic brass ensemble that crashes to the tune of chaotically flying missiles, or simply a tense and anxiety-ridden choir that sings moments before certain death, Watanabe captures the feeling of Yoko Kanno's music like no other director has. And more to the fact, the film benefits from an increased budget, allowing Watanabe to stretch his directorial legs with some of the smoothest and most impressive animation of its time. Hey everyone, it's officially the new year, which means a fresh start for everyone. Why not take the opportunity and learn with Skillshare? Skillshare is an online community where people can learn and explore their passion for all that's creative. With online classes on subjects that range from illustrative art to music production to writing, guided projects to help you make the most of what you've learned, and a team of real creators to guide you, Skillshare empowers you to achieve real creative growth. I'm always trying to improve Anime Abandon, and Skillshare is proving to be an invaluable resource with its many online classes surrounding video editing. In fact, I'm working on an episode right now that's been shot with what I learned from teacher Oliver Ostrologos transforming footage into evocative travel stories. Best of all, these classes are designed to fit in your schedule, allowing you to learn without having to put your life on hold. Skillshare is also incredibly affordable with an annual subscription of less than $10 a month. Click the link in the description to get 2 free months of premium membership and explore your creativity. Find out what you're passionate about, and make 2020 a year of learning and growth. This was one of Studio Bone's first anime projects, and only its second film, so ambitions were high for a fledgling animation studio that would go on to be one of the premier anime studios today. Having been founded by former Studio Sunrise animators, the same company that animated the series, Bones gives the film a sense of familiarity with the character and setting design, while also giving it a breath of freshness. Characters move and swing with a sense of fluidity that they never had before. Subtleties that couldn't be achieved with the limited budget of the TV series are now in sharp focus and are used to galvanize the mood and feeling. Just the way the movie captures singular moments of character eccentricities makes me shake my head and wonder at how they would even think to do that.
Are you looking for a bean shop, my friend?
You get a real sense that the movie is what the series would look like if Shinichiro Watanabe had all the time and money in the world. Not that the series looks ugly or is animated poorly. In fact, because of its budget, there is a directness and crispness to its limited movement that works more in its favor when paired with Kanno's music than not. But there is no denying that a gorgeously realized spectacle is, well, spectacular. And considering that one of the main characters is a martial artist, you kind of need to be able to animate him throwing hands. And the movie does not disappoint.
I love the kind of woman that can kick my ass.
If for no other reason, the hallway fight scene with Elektra and Spike here justifies the movie's existence. Everything about this fight scene oozes speed, precision, and just out-and-out coolness. The dynamic between Spike and Elektra as he toys with her and plays coy to her stone-cold determination is exemplified by the flow of their battle. She is strong and forceful, he is quick and capricious. It's not only a well-done fight, both on a technical and an animating level, but it's also a character moment for the both of them. It's the best kind of action scene, and one that I feel a lot of anime movies are still trying to live up to. Easily lost within the impressively realized animation and action scenes, though, is the real sense of place that the movie creates with its setting. Though the film is set on a colonized Mars, the feeling one gets is not one of a futuristic society, but one of modern-day Earth. Morocco, to be exact.
You can find anything on Moroccan Street. That's why you're here, isn't it? Yalla!
In my previous episode on Cowboy Bebop, I went to great lengths to describe why this sci-fi anime doesn't feel sci-fi. And that's because of its approach to setting. Sure, there are spaceships and futuristic weaponry and technology here and there, but they all play background noise to the immediate story. Half of the time, the plot of any given episode could happen during any point of modern human technology. After all, the notion of bounty hunters having to do the job the law isn't capable of performing is an antiquated one, founded in historical fiction, such as American westerns or its Japanese counterpart, Chambara cinema. It's well documented that Bebop reflects and homages a lot of American cinema, owing to Watanabe's love for it. But in the context of the setting, this blending of culture and location is just as much a byproduct of the story as it is Watanabe wanting to give shoutouts to Robert Rodriguez.
Everybody be cool. You be cool.
After all, in a future where humankind has only just begun colonizing the distant moons of Jupiter and Saturn, what might be exotic to us in the present becomes mundane and commonplace to the denizens of these colonies. It's like the anime has 1 foot in the future and 1 foot in the present. And considering one of the story's major themes, that can't have been a coincidence.
I've been seeing the past in one eye and the present in the other. So I thought I could only see patches of reality. Never the whole picture.
When I talk about the film capturing the feelings and the intangibles of the series beyond the aesthetics and the music, this is what I'm talking about. We're also approaching spoiler territory here, so if you want to skip this part, go to the timestamp right there. As I said, while there is an overarching story to Cowboy Bebop, the one connective theme that is sown throughout nearly every episode is the theme of life, death, memories, and the existential boundaries that separate the three. Protagonists, antagonists, and side characters all alike struggle with their own existence and their memories of the past, whether they are men who are once thought dead.
You said that you had died once, that you had seen death. Why can't you just let it go? Forget the past.
Women who by all natural reasoning should be dead.
You'll never believe it, dear. But the fact is that she's
A ghost from beyond.
Huh?
Or lost souls who can only find their way by seeking death.
I feel so heavy. But I finally feel at ease.
As it relates to the movie, these themes are inexorably tied to the main antagonist of the movie, Vincent, and his relationship with both Spike and Elektra.
I slept and felt that I was awake. I moved through the world and felt that I was dreaming.
It takes a certain kind of mentality to want to wipe out an entire colony, as there is seemingly nothing to gain. But in Vincent's eyes, he stands to gain what he has lost. As a survivor of an experiment performed on him by the Martian government, his inability to remember his past and his seeming immortality has robbed him of his life, condemning him to a constant purgatory.
I'll be at the bridge that links Earth to the heavens. You can stay here alone and watch what happens to this purgatory.
Spike, of course, sees himself in Vincent as his story parallels his own, right down to his search for the woman missing in his life. The only difference being that Spike is fully aware of Julia. Vincent seems to have forgotten Elektra.
I didn't know what it was. It just tore at my heart. Have you ever felt that way?
I have.
These notions of life being a constant state of anesthetized unawareness permeates the entire series. Just as Vincent believes himself to be a walking corpse, so does Spike himself feel that his life has been a constant dream, never being able to see reality for what it actually is.
I'm not going there to die. I'm going to find out if I'm really alive.
Both the film and the show use these ideas of life as a constant dream to blur the lines between reality and the past. And experiencing all of this as the viewer, it has an almost hypnotizing effect. Between the music, animation, direction, editing, and the spot-on performances by the cast, you can easily lose yourself into its mood, which very few anime can claim. However, I feel that I can't talk about the movie without bringing up the fact that it is a Bebop story. But as a Bebop story, there have been better. Plot-wise, the story follows the beats that the series has tread before, especially with episodes like Cowboy Funk and Pierrot Le Fou. The fact that we are once again concerning ourselves with a terrorist who was the subject of experimentation just reads like they took the conceits of both episodes and combined them into one. Additionally, while Spike is more frank and open with himself,
I started to think that I wanted to survive. For the first time, the idea of death began to scare me.
Considering how Bebop ends, his admission can feel a bit hollow. Nice to have regardless, but the chronology of the series and movie is very difficult to ignore. Further, because of the episodic nature of the series, the movie can't help but be compared to its own episodes. Because the movie plays it straight with only brief flirtations with lightheartedness, it can only be judged by the more serious and narrative-driven episodes, and that sheds an unflattering light on it. Ballad of Fallen Angels, Jupiter Jazz, Ganymede Elegy, Black Dog Serenade, they're all far more memorable and hit their target more soundly than the movie. Still, I feel it's sort of inevitable that an anime movie be compared to its series, with realistic expectations being that it achieves at least mid-tier episode quality. Moreover, I feel that there could be worse things said about your movie than your television series had better stories in it, especially when said television series is Cowboy Bebop. My original episode focused mostly on the broad appeal of Bebop and how it achieved that through its decidedly non-anime influences, as well as its openness to be quote-unquote not Japanese. However, with years having passed, I realized that I had neglected to actually talk about the themes of its series, taking for granted that these points had been talked about to death. But, as time has shown me, the past never truly stays shut, and there will always be a reason to talk about the classics, and why they should remain as such. Maybe you're in agreement with me, maybe you're not, but at the very least I should hope that you come out of this episode knowing why Bebop has lived on, and why it will continue to live on. Or at the very least, why I consider it one of my favorites. But I think I've had my time, so I'll leave the episode and the discourse to all of you.
See you, Space Cowboy.
In the meantime, 2020 has just begun, and while 2019 was a year full of struggle and hardship, it was also a year where a lot of exciting things begun happening to me. I can't wait to find out what the future has in store for me. I mean, past Mehuary. Till next time.